7 o'clock, everybody. Good evening. This is the Rockport Select Board meeting on Monday, April 29th, here at the Opera House. It's 7 o'clock in the evening, and I'll call the meeting to order at this point. Our first items of business are public hearings on the various warrant articles that will be voted on by secret ballot on Tuesday, June, whatever it is. 11th. Thank you. And we have several of those to go through this evening. So the first public hearing we have is on the proposed warrant Article 3 on the annual town meeting warrant, and that is the food sovereignty ordinance that is up for vote. So I'll open the public hearing for this warrant Article 3, the food sovereignty ordinance, and I will ask if there is anybody who wishes to speak in favor of this particular ordinance. Okay.
Good evening. Marcy Casas, 34 South Street. I've already spoke to you guys twice about this issue. I just wanted to bring up one additional thing. The Rockport Conservation Commission did discuss well water testing at their last meeting. And we decided that this year we would do well water testing for food licensing and safety. So if this ordinance does pass, that will be something we will be offering to community members. Hi. And that would be for more than just the food sovereignty piece. That would go out to all residents in Rockport, and it covers coliform, E. coli, pH, nitrate, and nitrite. So I just wanted to give you guys that little piece of information too. I think that you guys have already voted on this, so if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Does anybody else wish to speak in support of the warrant Article 3, the food sovereignty ordinance? Seeing none, does anybody wish to speak in opposition to this ordinance? Seeing none, does anybody wish to speak neither for nor against this ordinance? Seeing none, then I will close the public hearing on Article 3.
Can you give a time for her?
7:03.
Okay.
Do you need me to give the times, Linda, or you? Okay, thank you. Thanks. The next public hearing is on proposed warrant Article 4, which is a marijuana cultivation ordinance. And I will open the public hearing for warrant Article 4 and ask if anybody wishes to speak in support of this particular ordinance. Seeing none, does anybody wish to speak in opposition to this particular ordinance?
Thank you. Owen Casas, 34 South Street. So is there a time limit? I'll be brief, but I'm just curious.
Go for it.
Thank you. When I was in the legislature, this is something that we discussed quite a bit. So just a couple of things that I want to have you all think about, or have the citizens of the town think about. First off, the way that I understand this, you all are fixing a loophole or trying to, stop something that you think may lead to potentially nefarious activity. That's what loopholes are. But I guess I don't really see what's broken here yet that needs fixing, or the potential for egregious breaches on public safety or things of that nature, and I guess I'll tell you my reasons why. So one of the things that came up quite a bit in the legislature was Colorado. We had to look at other states and what it is that they had done, try to learn from their lessons. There seemed to be a lot of talk about how it did not work out well for Colorado for personal grow, and how it could be pooled together on a contiguous parcel of land. The big difference was that Colorado had a 99 plant personal grow limit. They've since brought that much down in line, but that's where they were having their issues. They were allowing people to grow huge amounts of plants. We had a 6 plant limit that was reduced to 3. So what we're actually talking about per individual are 3 plants. Another thing, each one of those plants has to be tagged with some identifying feature of who those plants belong to, and that's the same with all of the plants in their various vegetative states. So in the event that law enforcement found out that there were things that needed inspecting and they went and looked, if those plants do not have a human attached to them, then those individuals have broken the law and should be penalized. One of the things, again, that I heard a lot in the legislature was it seemed to be a conversation of the full amount of plants on one parcel or tract of land, and not the fact that those plants are actually tied to human beings. So if we're doing 3 flowering plants and you have 30 plants there, there have to be 10 human beings of lawful age attached to those, or they've broken the law. Having discussed this briefly with some of you folks, I kind of wanted to give you a little bit of a perspective on what this may actually look like, because in this town, we do have a community garden where folks lease space off of other landowners to grow vegetables, in that case, not marijuana. But Erickson Field Preserve is an example of one landowner allowing others to enter into agreements to grow things on their property. It's fenced off. It's a good community gathering place. I'm not necessarily saying that that's how something of this nature with marijuana would go, but I just want to point out what in town a community garden kind of looks like, and it's actually something that we really tout about and say that it's a great thing for our community. Another thing just to point out, I did query the police chief about how many marijuana-related incidents we have had in this town since legalization has gone on, and I believe the number was 0. There are some, in some of the report outs, marijuana is mentioned, but not actually as part of the incident. Whereas if you pull up alcohol, you have a huge number of crimes involved with alcohol. So again, what is the scope of the problem we are trying to fix with this ordinance? And the last thing, and this was something that was really, really important for me as I struggled with this in the legislature, was the whole intent of allowing folks to be able to cultivate personal grow plants on someone else's properties, because not everyone owns property. If you're a renter and your landlord does not want you to engage in that on their property, that's the landlord's right. However, the law now provides an additional right for people to grow their own personal use marijuana plants. And so what you're doing with this, if this ordinance was to pass, and why I felt so strongly when we discussed it in Augusta, was you're starting to take a right now given by the citizenry to the citizenry, and you're constraining it to a right of landowners, not everyone. And that's kind of not cool when we start saying you have rights because you clearly have enough money to have land, but these rights that those folks have, you don't have because you don't own land. And we're prohibiting you from maybe engaging in some commerce, but the way that I read this, it actually would prohibit any activity, regardless of the exchange or a lease agreement or anything of that nature. So I strongly oppose the ordinance. I also, and I won't belabor it because I'm sure you all must clearly feel horrible about the fact that you already offered your recommendation prior to a public hearing. So I won't go there because clearly you all must feel really, really bad about that. Or at least Ken did when I talked to him. So that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions if you all have any.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Does anybody else wish to speak in opposition to this proposed ordinance?
Marcy Casas. I haven't spoken in favor for food sovereignty, which would help our local farmers. I think that the recommendation to move this forward is short-sighted, because this is a real potential to help farmers if they were to be able to lease out their land. This could be an income generator for the town of Rockport, and having watched several of the budget meetings, I know that we need to increase our revenues, so I don't feel like we should in this town be putting our heads in the sand when it comes to marijuana. This could be a huge revenue source for us, and I feel like marijuana is gonna be here in the near future. It's going to be, this is just my opinion, it's going to be legal in the future. And if we could get out ahead of it and find ways like Camden to better police it while earning revenue, I think that we really need to pay close attention to what Camden's doing, because I feel like they're really thinking about it and exploring it, and that would be beneficial for us. Thanks.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak in opposition to this particular ordinance? Does anybody wish to speak neither for nor against this ordinance? Hearing none, then I will close the public hearing on warrant Article 4. It's 10 after 7. The next article is warrant Article 5, which is an amendment to the Coastal Waters and Harbor Ordinance, having to do with the residency requirement. So I will open the public hearing on warrant Article 5 and ask if anybody wishes to speak for this particular ordinance. Seeing none, does anybody wish to speak in opposition to this particular ordinance, or amendment to the ordinance, I should say? Seeing none, does anybody wish to speak neither for nor against this ordinance? Seeing none, then I will close the public hearing on this particular article, Article 5, and it's 7:12. The next article that we'll have a public hearing on is Article 6, which is another Coastal Waters and Harbor Ordinance amendment having to do with mooring specifications to be in line with industry standards. So I'll open the public hearing on proposed warrant Article 6 and ask if anybody wishes to speak in favor of this particular article, this particular ordinance. Seeing none, does anybody wish to speak in opposition to this particular ordinance? Seeing none, does anybody wish to speak neither for nor against this particular ordinance amendment? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing on proposed warrant Article 6 at 7:13. The next proposed warrant article, actually it's already a warrant article, is Article 7. Is another harbor ordinance amendment having to do with moorings being left, or boats being left on moorings during the winter season. This is Article 7. So I'll open the public hearing for Article 7 and ask if anybody wishes to speak in favor of this particular ordinance amendment. Seeing none, does anybody wish to speak in opposition to this particular ordinance amendment? Oh, okay, I thought you were coming up to speak.
Yeah, I did too.
Got a little excitement there for a minute.
Yeah, it's like, wow.
Oh my God, this has never happened before.
Okay, seeing none, does anybody wish to speak neither for nor against Article 7?
Can I take the pause to say Mark Kelly and Ken McKinley need to switch, or at least your nameplates do?
Oh, I didn't even check.
See, I told you
Go
that's
ahead.
why I always check mine before.
Now people know who I am.
Yeah.
We're just checking to see if people are paying attention.
If I'd have only known, Ken.
The details.
So let me ask one more time, does anybody wish to speak neither for nor against Article 7? If not, I will close the hearing on Article 7, the public hearing, and it is 7:15. The next article, public hearing on, is yet another harbor ordinance amendment having to do with the construction of floats, new floats or replacement floats, and using only encapsulated flotation. This is Article 8. So I'll open the public hearing on Article 8 and ask if anybody wishes to speak in favor of this particular article.
Back last year, I worked with a high school student on a polystyrene takeout container ban. And when she approached me, she wanted to do a polystyrene dock ban, but we decided to go with the takeout because it was less controversial. I'm thrilled that Abby and Harbor Committee put this on the warrant. I wish it would go a little bit further and put an end date for current floats that are already in the harbor, but I think we can work towards that with the Rockport Conservation Commission and with the Harbor Committee to eventually get an end date in there for the current polystyrene docks, because we all know that they slough off microplastics, and here we are out cleaning miles and miles of road to pick up styrofoam off the side of the road, but we have these unencapsulated docks right in our harbor, polluting our harbor all summer long. Thanks.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak in favor of this article, Article 8? Does anybody wish? No? Say it.
As a member of the Rockport Conservation Commission, we're in favor of this article.
Could you identify yourself?
Oh,
and
yes,
folks at
I'm
home?
sorry. Fred Rybeck, West Rockport, and a member of the Conservation Commission. I am in favor of this article, and our committee, our commission is as well, too. I think that further, we have to define exactly what kind of encapsulation, but as a concept, this is what we're after. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak in favor of this particular article? Does anybody wish to speak in opposition to this particular article?
Make up your mind.
Seeing none, does anybody wish to speak neither for nor against this particular article? Article 8. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing on Article 8. It is 7:18. The next article is Article 9. This has to do with the sale of town-owned land, or land swap, as it were, in West Rockport, near the West Rockport Fire Station. So I'll open the public hearing on this particular article, Article 9, and ask if anybody wishes to speak in favor of this article. Seeing none, does anybody wish to speak in opposition to this particular article? Seeing none, does anybody wish to speak neither for nor against this particular article? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing on Article 9 at 7:19.
Thank you for entertaining the funny farm.
I'll start them early. I can run for office in a few years. The final public hearing this evening is on warrant Article 10, which is a proposal for a sewer bond to expand the unserved portion of Route 1 between Sea Light Lane and the Penn Bay Medical Center. So I'll open the public hearing on Article 10 and ask if anybody wishes to speak in favor of this particular article. Seeing none, does anybody wish to speak in opposition to this article? Again, seeing none, does anybody wish to speak neither for nor against this article? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing on this Article 10 at 7:20. And that ends our list of public hearings this evening. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of previous meetings. We have two sets of minutes to look at this evening, one for Tuesday, April 16th, the select board meeting. I will entertain a motion on these.
Motion, we approve the minutes of the Tuesday, April 16th, 2019 Select Board meeting as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion here? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that's a 5-0 vote. Those minutes are approved. The next meeting we have are executive session meeting minutes for Tuesday, April 23rd. And I will await a motion on those.
Motion, we approve the minutes of the April 23rd, 2019 Select Board executive session as presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion here at all? The only comment I would make is that the town attorney was present by telephone. Was not physically present, but was present and participated by phone in that particular meeting. That's the only
So it
change
says-
that I have.
What says contacted by phone and was on the conference?
Oh, I see, okay. I was looking up at it says also present was Richard Bates and Phil Saucier. Okay, I guess that's fine then.
Present.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that's a 5-0 vote, those minutes are approved. Because this is the second meeting of the month, we don't have a full town manager's report, but just an update. And so usually we use that for the town manager to let us know about anything that has come up of great consequence that we don't want to wait till the next regular meeting for. So Rick, the floor is yours.
There's just a few little items, nothing of great consequence, thankfully. Streetlights, we're still moving forward. Town council is reviewing the a potential agreement between the town and, not Revision Energy, it's,
We know, yeah.
yeah, the lighting company. I thought somebody got the name. And the town council is reviewing that. It's the same agreement that's been used by most towns around that are using them. They have a couple of minor little tweaks that they want to add to it, but that should move forward. The IT, we had an IT audit performed recently, last week. That was completed, but we don't have a report yet. That's MMA came in and did an audit of our IT system after we did all of that work from a year ago. So that's, we expect that report in the next week or so. The generator, as I reported out to you previously, the generator is in and running fine, and remarkably, Linda's happy that it's not very loud, because it's right next to her office, so and it comes on Monday mornings. Did we hear it today?
Yes, we did,
Oh, okay, I didn't even hear it.
about 11 to 11:20.
Yeah, so it runs every day at about 11 o'clock, just to make sure it's coming on. There's an EMS ambulance review committee meeting on Thursday, remember that, Ken and Mark? We've been reviewing the emergency action plan. The safety committee has been working through that. We started the pre-audit. The auditors were here for 2 days last week, so we started that pre-audit work. Seems like we just finished the other audit and we're already on this one. We're working on getting pricing for the new wall, for the wall at the harbor, the launch ramp, so that once the budget is passed, we'll be ready to pull the trigger and get that done. The sewer survey is underway, as you all know. I think I reported out that we've had 90-some-odd responses so far, as of the other day. You'll be discussing it again further in your sewer commissioner's stuff. Unfortunately, Marcy left, but the roadside cleanup, Keep Rockport Beautiful, I think the weather may have postponed some of the events. Many of the roadside crews were out picking up trash. I think some of them were working on, scheduling for other weekends. But that was, again, very successful throughout the town. And also a new program that Marcy has come up with, which is the Route 1 Relay, to try and get businesses to sponsor cleaning up sections of Route 1. You'll see signs up on the side of the road. So they're working with Public Works and police in Camden and Rockport, and I believe Rockland, to clean up all of the sections of Route 1 and have businesses sponsor that, so that's my update.
I do have a question with regards to the generator. Is it necessary to have it come on every day and at 11
no.
o'clock?
No, just once a week.
Misspoke.
I think
Yeah.
you misspoke.
All right.
Originally said
Once a
Monday,
week.
and
Once
he
a
said
week.
every day.
I know the PD, the one that they have there, just comes on Sunday at 2:30, when there's nobody around to bother, so I didn't know whether it could be changed.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sure it can be said
It can be,
anytime.
it can be set.
Well, Right.
The challenge with having it come on a Sunday is you don't know that it's come on.
Well, doesn't whoever installed it record that on,
Yes.
you know, like we have a
Oh, do they?
generator. and-
Oh, yeah.
And the,
Yeah,
and
it'll be
the
Oh, it
people
records
who
it?
install.
Oh, okay.
It'll be
And
in-
it sends me an email.
yeah.
Oh,
There'll be-
I- it's an-
There'll be an
Yeah.
error code somewhere if it didn't start
Oh, I
properly.
got it.
Yep.
Okay.
Do you have any sense when they might install the test street lights so people could get a look at them? Is that,
That'll be after once we get the agreement
Yeah.
set up, get it to you, then they'll start. They'll start that
And will we
process.
have that for the May 13th meeting?
That's the goal, yep.
Okay.
I just had a question of Ken and Rick, and what's the time schedule on the EMS contract, just overall?
I mean, how long is the contract gonna be?
No, I mean, it comes back to the board.
It'll be
when-
on the May 13th
On May
meeting.
That's the
13th.
goal, is for
Yeah,
May
it's gotta be
13th.
because we've gotta get it,
Okay,
gotta get it renewed, yeah.
thanks.
Anything else for Rick? Okay, I correct my mistake in that I skipped some of the agenda before we went to the town manager's update, so, just going back up to, announcements of upcoming select board meetings, our next meeting, we have 2 meetings this week with the town manager search committee, tomorrow evening and Tuesday evening. Those are at the town office. There was some talk of them being here, but they are at the Richardson Room in the town office.
And executive session.
Starting at 6 PM, yeah, they are executive sessions. And what we will do as a board, because I posted an agenda for those, we will go into executive session, then join the search committee for their meeting, and then come out of executive session after that. The next regular select board meeting is Monday, May 13th, 7 o'clock here, and it will be live streamed. And does anybody have any agenda changes? I think we have a pretty short agenda this evening. And public comment. Public comment should be directed at issues not under discussion on this evening's agenda at this time. Comment from the public will be welcome prior to each agenda item. Further comment will be granted only by permission from the board. All public comment should be brief and to the point. Do we have anybody who wishes to make public comment this evening? Okay. Okay.
I will not be at that May 13th select board meeting, just to let
Okay.
you know, so.
I may not be as well. So we will,
Okay, it'll be a 3-person meeting then. It is a regular meeting, so we kind of have to have it, unless we get to the point where we don't have a quorum.
I'll
let you know how I feel.
I've got a business commitment with the city of Rockland that night.
Yeah, understand. Talk to me about some point, if you can be late, now just let me know when you might arrive or something, and we can
Yeah, I might be able to get here late too,
rearrange the
so.
agendas or whatever, so,
Okay.
okay. Okay, we don't have a consent agenda this evening. We do have, under unfinished business, policy discussion on allocating indirect costs to capital projects, and I apologize for sending the wrong file to Diane to put in the packet, but I gave everybody a copy of, based on our previous board discussion of an idea to start for this policy, and I don't know that we have to make any decisions this evening, but if the board has suggestions on this and where to go with it, we can then perhaps get it to Megan and Rick to take a look at it and actually get it into policy-type language for us or something of that nature. I put this together as a start on what we talked about, basically in 2 parts. First part is to start the Public Works Department keeping track of work they do for other departments in town, just in a very general way. We don't want to get too detailed about it, because then the accounting of it takes more time than the actual work does, and we don't want to get into that situation. But just in general, as I've laid out here, how much time are they spending in the various other departments doing sort of work that's not directly related to Public Works. And then the second part is what we had talked about earlier, which is for any capital project that's funded through grants or private donations, in other words, not by the taxpayer. If we anticipate using Public Works assets for those projects, to make sure that we include that as part of the cost of the project. The one that comes immediately to mind is Andre. We had a situation there where, yes, we had a quote for the electrical work to move Andre, and that was given as the cost of the project, but there was some Public Works time involved there as well, and if we're getting a separate funding stream for that, it's nice to be able to include that. We had a lot of donations for Andre above and beyond the electrical contract, or the repair contract for Andre, so This is just my first shot at this, and like I say, this is not policy language the way I've written it here, but I would open it up to the board to see if there's anything else that you want to do differently with this. Is this okay to advance and ask some of the folks to get on and write it in policy form, or where do you want to go?
Sounds good.
I'm seeing nods. Okay.
I thought that, sorry, I thought that the way you presented this was
That was the old
alternatives.
file.
Okay, so you're not presenting it as alternatives anymore? Now you're presenting
Well,
it as
I think it, this.
1 and 2 together?
Yeah, this came out of the discussion we had on that document previously, and that document was in a previous packet, and like I say, it was,
This is the corrected version.
So this is what you,
this is what I meant to send for this time, based on the discussion. The last document I sent was, here's some things we could do, and then based on what I got as feedback from the board, I said that I would run this out, which I did, and, so this is, and I think, you know, and at some point, we may want to be more extensive with it, but I think at the early stages, in my opinion, you know, getting a start with it is probably, you know, moving in the right direction without worrying about getting all possible iterations down right now.
It's conceptually correct.
yeah, I agree with that.
Okay. Okay. So Rick, if you could take that and, you know, maybe work with Megan and get it into language, and perhaps we can have it ready to look at as an actual policy at maybe in May, maybe beyond that, we'll see. Okay, on to new business. We don't have any committee appointments this evening. We do have to sign the annual town meeting warrants.
Yep.
We actually have to do this while the meeting is in session, so we're gonna have to take a little time here, and there are, how many here, Linda?
5 each.
Okay, yeah, so we have the, so we have to vote to sign it, trying to remember. We don't have to vote to sign it, but we do have to vote, the next item actually is the school referendum. And I believe, I don't see a proposed motion here, but I think we have to vote to sign that one, because we already voted on the town warrant, but we didn't vote on the school validation warrant. Do we have to vote to sign this one, or just
You
sign
always
it? Yeah, that's what I thought, so given that, before we start breaking out the pens and signing stuff, I would entertain a motion regarding the school, the budget validation referendum for MASAD 28 and the 5-town CSD, notice for election for Tuesday, June 11th.
Say that again.
Just need a motion to sign these school validation warrants.
All right, I motion we sign school validation warrants as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of signing? Any opposed? It's a 3-2 vote, the motion passes.
You don't want to do a roll call?
Oh, yeah, I guess we better, you're right, thank you. So we need a roll call on that vote.
Did we
No.
have discussion on that vote?
No, we didn't.
We could. I,
That's all right, we voted.
let me call the roll. Mr. Kelly,
No.
Mr. Hamilton.
Yes.
Ms. Hall,
Yes.
Dr. Cole,
No.
and McKinley is yes. So again, that is a 3-2 vote. So, we actually have to sign these while we are in the meeting, so we're gonna have to take a couple of minutes here and do this. I'll sort of pass them around and,
You wanna
Make
just,
sure you get them all,
yeah, I was
too.
gonna say, get them all. Why don't we just pass them down?
okay.
Yeah, because you might,
All you need is 3 signatures on the school one, right?
making a statement, are we?
That's your
Yeah.
prerogative, basically, but it is a board voted, the board has voted, so
I know.
my thought would be that once the board votes, we all are on board with it. I can start those down there, I guess.
You're supposed to grab that one too.
Just keep signing and pushing them this way, and I'll gather them.
That's fine, yeah, this will take just a couple of minutes, we just have to get them all
We gotta do it in
signed.
Can't
public, though,
really
right?
take a break from, but.
Yeah, the meeting is still in session, we do have to do it in public, so. The signature is getting worse with each one of these things.
You're working towards being a doctor.
No, I'm not.
Sorry, Doug.
these than 5.
Yeah.
Mark?
Did you put the, I'm gonna date these, Ken?
If anybody wants to fill in the date, that's
Yep.
fine, or Linda could do it.
29. Doug, you were gonna ask for,
Well, they need to cycle back up this direction, so.
Back this way.
yep, well,
And here's the town ones.
I hate writing fast.
I'd just like to take this opportunity to say hi to my wife, who's watching at home, I think.
I'd like to thank everybody that's been associated with me forever.
You're supposed to say hi out there in TV land.
Don't forget to take the piece out of the oven.
I'm trying to date these and get them to you, Ken.
Take your time.
Ken?
I think I got all of these.
These are all of town warrant copies.
This is the 30th, right?
29th.
Oh,
Just checking, just checking. Yep.
thank you. Ooh,
Carried away there?
yeah, I know. I saw a
Sign
blank,
Linda's spot.
I saw a blank line that I wanted to sign.
Make you the superintendent of schools?
Please.
You broke up the good paper for this too, didn't you?
I think those have to be posted someplace, so they,
The,
like where it rains or something.
the thick stock.
All right. We'll
Thank you.
deliver these forthwith to the town clerk,
Thank you.
all signed.
Count them and make sure you have them all.
They have all the signatures.
Yeah,
Pretty
Yeah,
sure they
well,
do it.
right.
Then there's that.
Somewhat.
We've done that before, missed one or something.
Okay. Where are we on the agenda here? Okay, so we've done both of those. The next item is discussion regarding an infrastructure bond. We have a lot of information in the packet about it, and I would, Mark and Jeff, I think, were involved with talking with the Capital Improvement Committee, so I might ask them to make any comments that they would like to on this, or Rick as well, for that matter.
I can start. The Capital Improvement Committee, based on discussion that this group had and the Budget Committee also had earlier this spring, the concept of talking about, are there some key items in the infrastructure, or items that have been hanging around for a long time that cost a lot of money, that are very difficult to do in an annual budget, and having those items be pulled out and put forth in the form of a bond to the citizens and taxpayers for consideration. So the short version is a lot of discussion around that activity, and that committee is trying to work down and whittle what those projects might be and look like, and get a better scope, a better understanding of cost estimates in order to come up with a bond that might be in that $1 million to $1.5 million range.
And I think the meeting next for them to present that or talk about it further is on the 7th of May at 5 o'clock at the town office. If anybody is interested, if I got that correct.
Does the committee need any more input from the board? Do they have any quandaries that they're in, or are they
No
marching
quandaries.
No.
All input, though, is welcome. As
Yeah,
to-
yeah.
I mean, you can see in your package some of the things that are being considered, such as some major street renovation, some sidewalk work, Walker Park seawall. The quandary, though, I'll be honest, the quandary is on the lime kilns and what to spend and how much, if any. So that's, and could that be privately funded or thing, perhaps? Tennis court work, columbarium. These are all types of things that, you know, relatively big-ticket items that are difficult to do in an annual budget.
And the minutes of that is in your
Yes.
packet too, but it
I
was,
think, you know, you're right, we had a lot of discussion about this through the budget process, and I think that the board and the budget committee together did a reasonably good job at identifying some things that we would like to fund in this manner. And it seems like that the capital improvement committee has taken this and run with it.
well, and I think they're gonna be happy, because then they can look at a smaller list that's not as daunting.
Sure.
uh, Get back to business.
I'm interested in some of the comments on Mount Pleasant Street. That was one of the big ticket items that actually, the idea of having a bond was first brought up. How's the discussion around that gone?
Everything you see is what's in the notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing,
I mean, no great long discussion on it.
I guess I would comment on the suggestion that it be its own warrant article.
That's sort of what got my
That's
attention.
kind of dangerous, just because we had this discussion several years ago when we had the last infrastructure bond, which I was on the board for at that time. I don't believe anybody else here was. And one of the reasonings for doing an infrastructure bond, which we did at that time, is that we can put a lot of items in it that are in various different parts of town, and hopefully there's something for everybody there. Because there was a suggestion at that time that let's float a different warrant article for every bond issue. And the problem with that, in my view, is that then people start cherry picking and say, well, I gotta vote against something, and so I'll pick this one to vote against or whatever, and it ends up.
No worries. I mean, again, this is all very,
Right, I'm just responding to the
but,
comment, that's all.
yeah, the thought of multiple bond requests probably is not the best idea.
Yeah.
It's just trying to figure out how much, and it's for the select board, not this committee, but the concept of how much and how big a bond do we have the stomach to float, for lack of better words, at this point.
No.
the dates for your monthly meetings or whatnot that Megan had put together are somewhat fluid, but they were dates that we picked, or she picked, we picked, so that people can put them on there for a reference or a guide. If anybody has any questions or something different or an additional date you'd like to see, let us know before the 7th, and we can,
Well, the one thing we have to make sure of, and Linda can help with that, is the deadlines for getting it on the ballot and the public hearings and all that. We don't want to have a situation come up, if we can help it, where it goes on the ballot and the public hearing is afterwards. That's not ideal. We can do it, but, it's,
One of the things that Jeff got up and did a kind of a quick and dirty, write down all the kinds of things that could go on a bond, and you can get up to well over $1.5 million
Yeah.
pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And so then there's the need to prioritize those things and get them into a format that gets down into that $1 million, $1.5 million number, if that's the target number, because you could easily go into many millions of dollars pretty quickly.
And one of the key concepts out of this, and it may not be captured well in the notes, is that the major focus is on paving, would be on paving and road improvement, reconstruction work. That's where the big ticket items would come from.
And I think of the $1.5 million that was mentioned as a rough number to work with, there was about $870,000 that was earmarked for other items, and there was around $630, the remaining, that would be actually utilized for roads to be reconstructed to help future deterioration be less.
And one part that came out of that was the town apparently has some software to do an assessment of road condition, frequency of use, that the whole criteria list that you can come up with and do a numerical weighting, if you will, of what the number one priority should be, what the number two priority should be, so that you can go down through here and get an estimate for each, and then we draw a line somewhere and say, this is how far we're willing to go.
When you say road construction, does that include any associated sidewalks that have fallen to
The sidewalks are
disrepair?
part of
Right.
the concept.
Yeah,
Okay.
most of that, I think, was about rebasing roads.
Yeah, I think what you really want to do, because anytime you bond something, you want the project to last at least as long as the bond payments do. So talking about roads that need a full depth reconstruction is the right way to go.
Yep.
This isn't about the resurfacing,
Right.
you get a 7-year life on a bond and you get a 10-year bond life, and that doesn't make a whole lot
And
of
they,
sense.
they, like we also understand that we've been going behind with our roads and our ability to keep up with them, given costs and budgets, so.
Right. It might be worth too, looking at, I don't know how many more years we've got to go on the infrastructure bond we did the last time. Was that a 10-year or a 20-year bond? I don't remember.
I think 10, I think.
So we got to be halfway through that one then.
Yeah.
And that might be an idea to say, well, let's look at some things that we could float a bond for this November, but are there some other items that we could look at once we've paid off the previous infrastructure bond, that we could say, well, okay, we've paid that one off, now let's look again. Are there some items that are in the 5-year time frame that we could think about funding that way?
These are pretty much the big ones that we thought of in the foreseeable future.
Yep.
A lot on roads, road condition, and that activity. Now, we didn't get down in the nitty-gritties of which roads and how long and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's not for us,
That's-
that's the professionals to do that.
That's up to Public Works and other groups to put the assessment tool to use.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it sounds like this was a productive meeting.
It was.
Does anybody have any further comments on this particular agenda item? Okay, the next item is a discussion regarding possible workshop dealing with the future of the RES property. And I know Doug and Deborah and Rick have been involved in that, along with some others, so I would cede to them as to what they would like to do there.
Well, pretty much at the last work group, which includes Bill Napower, Hannah Sisk, myself, Deborah, and Rick, and we've invited over time various business leaders from the community, and just to bounce ideas off of them, we feel it's probably time now to put together a sort of a community effort where we can have a workshop. And the vision is to have multiple tables with a layout of the site, and then have various cutouts to have that would represent fields and buildings and things like that, and just have interested members of the town participate in this project, and see if we can build a consensus of what might be a good use for the site.
I sat in on it just for a little bit, just to try to jump on the moving wheel, and it was very informative, and I'm glad that they're doing it, and also that the property might see some life in the near future.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we'll build consensus, but, I mean, I think the idea was to get input, right?
Well, yeah, I guess that's a better way to look at it,
Input
yeah.
from the
Ultimately, we
town.
want to build consensus, but I think it's the
Sure.
very early stages,
Yeah.
I would
Right.
guess, right now.
Right. Get input from residents in terms of what they would like to see there. We have some goals that, that we have previously discussed and shared here of what we'd like to work toward in the site. And I think that we would want the workshop to be focused on getting input in light of those goals.
Those are the 4 principles that
Yep.
we've referred to in the past.
Right. Is there, have you discussed at all whether the town would retain ownership of the parcel, or is there the possibility of selling part of it or dividing? I'm just asking the question if that topic has come up.
We've recognized that as a question, and we don't have an answer to that yet. We need input from
Okay, so you're looking for input on that as
experts
well?
and stuff.
Okay.
Well,
from
we don't,
experts, I think,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's a tough question, and I don't understand all the ramifications, and so
Well,
it's
this-
recognized
yeah.
as an issue.
Yeah, I mean, we had this as a charrette, I'm gonna say 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
And there were proposals to the select board at that time, this is before I was on the board, solicited proposals from various entities, and this was when the building was still there. And they received several proposals, and then they ended up
Yep.
landing on one, but then that one didn't come to fruition, and there we are.
Doug has done a great job in pulling together all of that past work that had been done, and so we've incorporated all of that into our discussions of what was done 10 years ago or whatever. Also recognizing that, you know.
It was 10 years ago. So,
Although there was a lot of usable, you know, applicable things there.
yeah, I think, I mean, people's feelings may have changed a little bit over the 10 years. Certainly, there are some things that have changed, but I think it's probably is time to get out there and
Yep.
gauge the sense of the community again. I noticed a suggested motion. Did you guys want to set a date for that at this point?
That was one of the reasons, was setting a date.
May 29th or 30th, and we would like the select board to all be involved. I mean,
Yeah.
as Doug said, we imagine separate tables. We'd like the select board, you know, maybe a select board member to be at each table, you know, one table, I mean, and then, each table. And committees, we'd like to encourage our committees to participate.
Right.
So, anyway, May 29th or 30th was what the working group felt was a reasonable couple
So
of
would we
doable
look at this
dates.
as a select board workshop? I probably would have to. If the
Yeah.
select board was all gathering, we'd have to
Yeah,
call it a select board
yes.
workshop, even though
Right.
it's, you know, the select board is gonna be, as a whole, perhaps not running it necessarily. I don't, those 2 dates, what kind of days are those? Off the top of my head, I don't.
Look. Middle of the week. It's the middle of the week after Memorial Day, isn't
Say
it?
It must be after Memorial Day.
One thing it just came to mind is one of
Excuse me,
the,
Wednesday and Thursday.
one of the neighbors that lives there and cannot make a meeting during the day brought that to my attention that perhaps it could be held at 5 o'clock.
Oh, yeah, that's the
I
intent.
think an evening meeting would be
because-
best for
yeah.
something like that. We get the best attendance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely think that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the intent, and Jeff can't make it if it's midday.
So I'm open to whatever motion people would want to make as far as scheduling this goes.
I don't know, do you really need a motion, or just,
Yeah, just put it on there,
just
Will.
put it on,
Well,
or
we-
choose a date, and then go with it?
27th, obviously, is Memorial Day, correct?
Right.
Yeah, we sort of narrowed it down, Jeff, to
29th
either
or the
29th or the 30th,
Wednesday or
Wednesday or Thursday. There didn't seem to be much else going on around in town on those dates, in terms of committees and stuff.
I'm available either.
Yeah, the important thing was to get this before the board so that it wasn't like a surprise that all of a sudden there was a meeting scheduled and it's like, wait a
Right.
minute.
Well, let's-
Yeah.
So I'm gonna, if nobody else, I'm gonna say let's do it on the 29th.
Okey-doke.
Unless there's any opposition to that, just to pick a date. And we'll say, do we want to say 6 o'clock? If it's a workshop type of, how long do we anticipate this? A couple of hours?
Yeah,
Probably a couple hours now.
Okay. So the 29th, 6 to 8, does that work?
yes.
Okay.
One of my hopes is, and I realize it's a hope and it may just not be possible, but you know, the town has done a lot of work over the years, spanning several years. And again, I'm hoping we can come up with some ideas that we can move ahead with and not have to spend all the time reinventing the wheel. But we shall see.
And even though we're being very, neutral, kind of flat about the discussion here, we've actually, in our meetings, had some really interesting meetings and some pretty, exciting ideas. And so really, our lack of enthusiasm here is not reflective of the project. I mean, I think that we're really kind of, we're very interested in moving this along. And weren't we talking about doing it upstairs here, right?
Potentially, yeah, we have
Yeah, we-
round tables, and we could do it upstairs.
Did anybody ever check if the 29th or
I
30th
believe
is
Diane did.
available?
I'll double-check with Diane.
Well, let's let her check that, and if there's a conflict, we can
Then
go.
we could always do the
can go to
30th.
It
next
does say
night.
round
Sounds like-
table setup on it, so.
So for now, we'll leave it as the 29th, 6 to 8. And I think one of the goals might be to hear something that you haven't heard before.
Yeah,
and-
exactly.
And say,
Yeah.
hey, that's a great idea. Let's
Right.
dig into that one a little bit more
Right,
deeply and see
and we
where it
don't
goes.
want to talk about, I mean, we don't want to prejudge anything. We don't want to throw out the things that we've been talking about. We want to hear,
No.
we want people on.
Well, I assume that this work group will have some sort of
Biased by that.
introductory
Yeah.
comments at the
Yes.
workshop that,
Right.
that will sort of guide how it goes,
Yep.
so. So it'll be a select board workshop, but I'm really gonna lean on the work group for,
Yep.
putting together some kind of agenda or program or however you'd like it to go.
It's well underway.
Yeah, Hannah and
It just seemed appropriate that there's been a lot of work that's gone into this so far, and it's now time to okay, let's bring this out in the light of day so that everybody can be involved. That we're at the point where now is the time to get, to open it up and invite people in and have a community conversation about it.
Right. Okay, that sounds good. Anything further on that item? Okay, next item on the agenda is consideration of the Rockport Library bidding process. As most folks know, the bids were opened for the library project on Thursday, April 18th, about a week and a half ago. We received 3 bids. The key bid we were looking at was the building bid, and our construction estimate for that was $3 million, and all the bids came in higher than that. Since that bid opening, we have had 1 bidder withdraw, the Penobscot Company, which leaves us with just 2 bidders at this point. Blaine Casey Building Contractor at $3,335,000 and some change, and Bruce Lauka from Rockport of $3,658,000 and some change. So that's the status that we are right now with this situation.
Clarifying question, did Penobscot Company pull out of just the building portion, or did they pull out of everything that we asked them to bid on?
I believe they pulled out of
I
everything.
believe they pulled out of everything.
And I'm seeing nodding from our owner's representatives in the back row.
Right, so they pulled out of the parking bid, the intersection bid, and the stream bid.
Correct. So they no longer wish to be considered for the project. So at this point, and the reason it's on the agenda this evening is that the board has to decide, first of all, we have the bids, and the bids are over our budget at this point. So the board has some decisions to make about whether we want to, how we want to proceed with this. Some of the options would be to continue with the bidding process with the 2 remaining bidders and ask our owner's representatives to work with them to try to get the bid amount down to within our budget, which may require some scope changes of the project. That's one way we could go. We have our owner's representatives here tonight, and they may be able to advise us on how practical that might be to get down to the 3 million number that we need to see in that base building number. Or the other option would be to, because the bids all came in high, the board could move in a different direction and not accept any of the bids and put the project, make some scope changes to the project and put it out to bid a second time to see if we, see what we get that time. But it's a discussion that the board has to have, and that's what we're here for this evening, so.
And I don't think those are all of the alternatives. And we should reiterate that we did have a meeting on Tuesday, was it Tuesday? With our an executive session?
Yeah, it was an
with our
executive
outside
session
counsel?
with, mostly with the town attorneys to make sure, because there are a lot of moving parts here involving the bidding process, the town's purchasing policy, and the contracts that the town has with the architect and with the owner's representative. And the purpose of that executive session was mostly to see what our options were with legal counsel's advice as to how we could proceed.
Clarifying question, Ken, and just mostly for public knowledge. What is the amount that's required to complete the project that's not shown in these bids? For example, the soft cost, the engineering cost, construction management cost. What is that total?
The soft cost is estimated at $500,000, making it a $3.5 million project total. The thought was, with the estimating too, that the parking number, which is bid number 2, would be included in the $3 million cost of the building. So we need to get those two items, number 1 and number 2, would have to come in at $3 million for us to be within our budget.
Okay.
The intersection cost is a separate cost, and we've dealt with that in the municipal budget with some proposed money for this upcoming fiscal year, and much of that will occur in the following fiscal year, so that's where that money will come in. The bid number 4, which is a stream stabilization, there is money in the current year's municipal budget to take care of that. And those bids, by the way, the stream bids, did come in about where we thought they would. So those were, correct me if I'm wrong on that,
Yeah,
Rick,
they are
that's,
correct, yeah.
that's about
Right,
where
so
we thought they would.
The only correction is there's nothing budgeted this year. We're gonna get it out of this year's budget.
Right, there is money in this year's budget that allows us to do that project.
So, again, for clarification for all our listeners on the West Coast audience, the building and parking combined need to come in at 3 million or less in order to be able to hit our 3.5 million total project cost.
That's correct.
Okay, and so the lowest bid, just to remind everybody, is, for the building is $3,335,000 plus, and the parking is $95,000 plus, almost 96 on top of that. So, and the second bid is 3.6, and the parking is 123 on top of that. And my understanding, well, of course, these don't include any accommodation for contingencies or for change orders, which we know for a fact will occur. So can I make a motion?
Can I, we should put this table that we're all looking at right here up on the big screen.
Bruce,
Yeah.
can you do that? It's in the packet.
Looks like this, Bruce.
Okay, yeah, it's there, it's in the
Yeah.
packet.
I'm
yeah,
ready
that-
to make a
that's right, it would
motion
be-
if you, if it's an order. And if I did that, I would only want to say that, I mean, we're going to have further discussion about this, so this is not cutting off the discussion, this is just enabling us to go further
I
in the
guess before
discussion.
I mean, you and I and Jeff have all had something to say. If Doug or Mark want to have something to say before a motion, I would give them that chance.
All right. Just very briefly, yeah, it was personally very disappointing for me, the way this bidding went, largely because everyone knew that our budget was $3 million. Every one of the contractors that bid knew that the budget was $3 million. All of our takeoffs that we'd had done ahead of time were less than $3 million. And so to have the current bidding process come in with the bids that were above that, I just didn't expect it. So I don't know what Deborah's motion's going to be, but I was disappointed in the process that got us to where we had bids that were over $3 million.
Mark, any comments before?
In just listening to other contractors around town in the area, they were a little skeptical that we were going to be able to achieve the numbers because of their building information.
I mean, do I wish the bids had come in lower? Yeah, but the bids are the bids. These are what these companies are basically, willing to do it for, at least in initial. And I think one of the items we had, when we had the meeting where the bids were opened, we had a couple of low bidders, and at that point, we were thinking about the possibility of, well, we've got a couple of low bidders with a couple of different sets of subcontractors, and our owner's representative felt fairly confident at that time that they could probably bring it, negotiate with the bidders and get us to a place where we were with a comfortable budget number, but with one of the bidders pulling out, I think that becomes a little bit more difficult.
We are currently even at the lowest combination of both, 400,000, more than 400,000 off where we need to be.
Before change orders or contingencies.
Right. And I do feel like, I mean, we did a lot of work ahead of time in this project, as everybody knows, as far as getting the estimates done. And so I would never go as far as to say the change orders are going to be zero, but I do feel fairly confident that the change orders for a project of this size are likely to be lower than average because of the work we did ahead of time.
Sure,
But they won't be zero.
But, right, as Charlie said in the live streams in the meeting with the building committee, that they won't be zero.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
So are you ready?
if a motion is in order, if you want to make it.
I would like, I move that we reject the bids submitted by Blaine Casey Building and Bruce Lauka, Inc. For the library project, both of which were in excess of the town's budget.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion?
Yeah, is that building and parking, or is that
Everything.
taking everything off the list?
Everything.
Yeah, the bids were submitted as a package, so that's the way they, so the motion is to reject the bids that we have, the remaining bids that we have, the two bids, and the motion has been seconded. Any discussion on the motion? I will say that I think this is perhaps the first step in a process of moving toward getting the library built within budget, because I remain committed to getting the library that we've designed built.
Me too.
And this has been a process that,
Yep.
in fact, that's what Doug said when we opened the bids, this is a process, and this is a process right now, and I think that the board then has to decide how to move forward with that process with all due haste, because I believe we still, from some of the discussions we've had, that we can still get this built with a start time this summer. And so by voting for this motion, in no way would I be saying that this project isn't going to happen and isn't going to happen in a reasonably timely manner.
And can I make the motion consistent with the views that you just expressed?
And I think it's important for the board to state that so the public understands
I can
what
just-
we're doing.
Pile in there, I mean, the lowest bid is $3.4 million of just the building and the parking. We don't have, and then when you put everything else on top of it, you've got a $4 million project. What we have been offered here in the bids is something we cannot afford.
And we appreciate, those contractors bidding and, the time that they took to do it and everything. It's
Yeah.
just, as Jeff says, we just can't afford it.
And there are a lot of different ways we can move forward with this.
Yes.
This is the first step of moving forward.
Right.
And there's a lot of different ways. We've talked about some of those, and I think probably, my opinion, what we should probably do is get the board together, perhaps even later this week, to discuss how to move forward.
I would like to discuss that tonight.
Okay, well, we'll see where we can go with
yeah,
that. But
yeah.
Call the vote.
Yep.
is there any further discussion on the motion?
Just called it.
He can't call it unless, but I'm just asking if there's any further discussion.
No.
Yeah, when that happens.
If there's no further discussion, then we have a motion in front of us to reject the two bids that we've received. All in favor of that motion?
It still got us to this point, though. Thank you.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. And now we have further discussion at this point, if anybody wants to dive into that as to where we go from here.
Go ahead.
All right, there's really, the options are not that many. I mean, what we put out for bid is cost more than what we can apparently build, based on the bids that were presented. And I think that somehow the project has to be re-scoped so that at least $400,000 needs to come out of what we might send out for bid.
I agree that we need to look at rescoping it, and I guess, I don't want to, well, I would like to talk a little bit about what rescoping means. In my mind, it does not mean going backwards in terms of the design of the building. There might be some features on the building that are not functional, that might just be aesthetic, that, that could be adjusted or changed. But there might be other things that we can put off, so that when we get closer, I mean, if we can get down to our budget, we need to be able to have the flexibility to, and I just throw this out as an example, a lower level perhaps that doesn't get finished until we know we're going to be within our budget. And then we finish it at the end because the foundation does such a wonderful job raising money and it gets done. Or if it means that maybe the lower level isn't completely finished, and it gets finished, through funding or whatever 6 months later. Well, okay. But I mean, there just needs to be some flexibility. We're not trying, I'm certainly not saying, well, let's back up, let's do it somewhere else. And in fact, this is something I think it's really important for people to know. And that is that we have consulted with our bond counsel, and our bond counsel has made certain things abundantly clear. That we cannot change the location of the library. We have to go with the design of the library. You guys correct me if I misstate anything here. We have to go with the design as we, generally speaking, as we have. And if we don't do that, we're going to owe fines and penalties to the IRS, and it may make it difficult for us to bond projects in the future. And that's something that we just can't do to this
Right.
town. So we have to go forward with the project. We have to find a way forward that is within our budget, at the location. And so, I mean, this is actually, and from my view, this is a very positive message that we have to go forward. But we have to do it in a smart way, in a way that we can afford it.
And I would add that the message from bond counsel had certain guidelines that we have to meet as far as spending the bond money. We're gonna have that bond money in the bank in a couple of
A
weeks, I
month,
think.
or, I think it's a month,
End
May
of
23rd.
End of May, yeah, so, less than a month from now, we're gonna have that money in the bank. And we have to, according to bond counsel, and I'll miss the numbers or whatever, but we have to spend 15% of it by a certain date, and we have to spend.
6 months.
Yeah, I can't remember, and then we have to spend another 50% or whatever it is, we have to spend it all within 18 months.
That's correct.
So we can't put this off, or as Deborah says, we're gonna end up with some penalties and put the town in a really bad position, so
So
it's
there will be a
critical.
library, it will be
Yes.
in the village, it will cost no more than $3.5 million, and it will happen really soon.
And for me, when we talk about rescoping, what's really important for me is the core, the program area of the library. We worked really hard on that to get a design that was going to provide the services that the town wanted with the library. There are some, as Deborah said, there may be some peripheral things that we can look at, changing the scope that maybe can save us a little bit of money, but that area that's going to service the public, in my mind, has to stay intact. We can't make any changes to that, in my
Yes,
opinion.
sure.
And we could find something different if we go in and talk about this, but.
Yeah. So I would like to ask some questions, and some of these questions that I'm going to ask don't have to be answered tonight. But one of the things that that has been in my mind is that FI, as part of their very diligent, great process, had come up with a cost estimate for the library of 2.97, I believe. And and we had set the parameters in the beginning, FI, as our owner's rep, could not bid on the project. And so they did not, submit a bid. And of course, FI cannot build this building for us if they're our owner's rep. There's no question about that in terms of conflict of interest. But I would like to know at some point if FI might be willing to be a contractor on this project, which would of course require that they resign as owner's rep. And again,
To resign and get fired, I'll talk to you about it. I don't want to get fired.
again, I'm not looking for any answer tonight, but what that's something that I think that is certainly, and it's something that we have discussed with our outside counsel. It's interesting that we did not have to bid this project, but there's exceptions in our purchasing policy. There's no requirement under state law that we had bid the project in the first instance. Secondly, there was no requirement under our purchasing policy that we bid it, and I'm not suggesting we shouldn't have bid it, please don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that we are not constrained by bidding it. We're not constrained by sending it out for a second bid. We have options here that are interesting options to potentially pursue, and that could take us less time than the whole idea of starting from square one and sending it out to bid. So those are the kinds of things that are on my mind that I would like to see us talk about, and I want to see us talk about it very transparently and openly, obviously. But I want to say that anything we do from here, as Jeff says, needs to be with the idea that there's got to be some kind of phasing or something to the project. Because when we say that the project comes in at $3 million, we can't have a $3 million project. We can't have a 2.97, whatever it was, Charlie, project. We need to have a project that comes in lower than that by rescoping it to some degree, phasing it, so that we know by the time we get done with change orders, we're still going to be at 3 million. We're not going out, or we have a donor that comes forward, or the foundation is so incredibly successful that that difference is made up there. But we have to protect the town's money, so
Yeah,
we're at
that's on our
we're at
shoulders.
1.5 million.
Couple things I want to add to that. One of the things that I had asked, we did have an executive session with town council last week to talk about this, and this morning I had asked town council to summarize what they had said for us so that we had a written copy of it, and I apologize, that didn't get to most people probably till late in the day, but one of the interesting things that I saw in that response was regarding the situation that you mentioned with our owner's representative. Their contract right now prohibits them from bidding on the project. But one of the thoughts that council brought forward, I thought, was the possibility we could amend the contract at some point. And so that's something we have to talk about. We're not going to resolve that this evening, but that's something that we have to talk about.
Yeah, but we would have to go forward with a different owner's rep. I mean, going
probably,
forward.
yeah.
If FI
Yeah.
were even
Yeah,
in the
if that
picture
was
in
considered,
terms of
and that's
contracting.
something that we have to talk about,
Yeah.
yeah. There was something else I wanted to say, and now I forgot it.
Can I say there's something on the record, if you don't mind? This is an integrity matter. I have Bettina Hilton from Five. I think the most important thing as we have this conversation, it's really important. I, on behalf of Phi, we will do whatever we can to help. But as your owner's rep, we didn't orchestrate a bad bid so we could get this job. And if that comes back and anybody asks, and my integrity and my company's integrity is questioned, that's gonna be a little rough for me, I will tell you. That said, as your owner's rep and committed to doing the best we can for our client, Charlie and I will do the best we can, starting now, to shift gears and figure out how to get your number where you need it to be. I don't know if you know this about Charlie and me, we're fairly competitive and failing isn't our favorite thing. So if we tell you that building's coming in at 2971, you're not gonna see a friggin' penny above it. So somehow or other, you will see that number and that building built at that number, and he's got yes, and remember, careful, you're gonna take over for me?
I'll be very careful.
Thank you.
This is a surprise because we didn't expect this, obviously, and this wasn't generated by Phi. No portion of this was generated by Phi.
We know that.
After the bids were opened, I spent considerable time looking at my estimate. And I can tell you that Phi is very confident that 2.971344, which is what I submitted as an estimate prior to the bid, so that we would all understand where the bids would come in. We're confident and stand behind that number. And we know that building could be built for that number. We're looking at a guaranteed, if this would come up, and I've just heard about it now, but if it comes up, it would be a guaranteed maximum. What I'm saying to you is that I don't want 2.971345. and I don't want to give you 2.971343. I'm telling you that the price of this project is 2.971344. As is, as is scoped and as is bid for, by every other bidder, including the parking,
Thank you.
okay? There, the 10% overage, there's a reason for that. And there's speculation, and there's also some guaranteed reasons for it, from conversations with contractors and bidders. That's not important at this point, but I can tell you that FI stands behind 2.971344. And your building will get built.
Thank you.
Does,
Jeff?
go ahead.
I'm concerned about the other parts, intersection work as well. Because when we rejected the bids from Blaine and Bruce, we rejected the bids for intersection. Right now, we've got nobody to do intersection work.
They have subs.
We've also investigated the estimates that we've had, which we weren't asked to do, for the intersection and the parking. And we will, the intersection and the stream. We will absorb those as well and provide an estimate for you within the next week and a half. But we will take those projects and do it as a package, just as if it was anyone else, in what I'm hearing now. But we did, once the bids came back, we did our own investigation into what we think the bids should be. We weren't hired by you to do that, but we did it as a parallel estimate, and we're comfortable that we can we can do those projects within the budgets of those projects as well.
So let me get it straight. So you, FI, are willing to proceed down a path with the town where you would be the contractor with that guaranteed price?
This is the first time we're hearing this. We have to talk about it. We'll have this conversation, and if you can give us a day at least to absorb it and speak about it
Yeah.
between Bettina and I,
Yeah,
we'll be able to give you a more
Yeah,
definitive answer.
as I said, I wasn't expecting any kind of answer tonight. I just
No,
wanted
not at
to,
all.
I just wanted to be clear on what I was hearing. Okay.
You're hearing correctly.
And one of the things I remembered what I was gonna say earlier, because Jeff talked about rescoping and looking at some ways that we could, if we go that route, to move things out of the project or to reduce the cost. And one of the ways that we can do that is that the bid, as it went out, had 4 alternate bids in there for various things, different kind of roof, and I can't remember the others or whatever, but if we did that rescoping, then what I would suggest, and we talked about this the other day, would be to take the items that we're rescoping and shift them from the base bid to alternates. And that way, we wouldn't be taking them out from the design, and that goes along somewhat with what Deborah said about maybe doing some things later or something like that, but if we can get the base bid down, and that may not be an issue if the FI possibility comes along.
Yeah,
but,
let's hear what they, FI
yeah.
comes back with. But I want to make sure that, I want this board to make sure, and we can take a vote on it if it need be, but I want all communications to be with this entire select board now. It's not in the building committee's, hands, it's not in the design team's hands, it's with this select board.
Do we want to think about scheduling another meeting?
Do we have an agreement on that, or is it?
I don't know if we have an agreement on that.
Well, we have
On the last part, we do.
No,
Yeah, the
that,
select
yes,
board
the
part.
select board, it's
Yes,
within the
yes,
select
yes.
board. I mean, this is not committee material, this needs to be at the
Yeah, I
select
mean,
board
we
level.
are going to go over the charge of the building committee in early May, as Deborah requested, but we do still have a building committee which we appointed with a certain charge.
But it's suspended as far as I'm concerned right now, I think we talked
Pending.
about
Well,
that. I mean,
I agree with Deborah, pending outcome of what this board decides. Yes, we are going to need a building committee once we have a hole in the ground and paint
Right.
colors and everything are
Right.
being selected.
So
But
speaking
for
of,
right now, I think this is up to the select board.
absolutely,
Yeah,
I mean, it's up to us to delegate, and I'm saying I am not willing to delegate any of this decision to anyone other than,
speaking of building committees, we had one and still have people that were on one in any of the buildings that Rockport has built over the past 20-some years. And it didn't occur to me at the time, which is partially my fault as a board member, but why weren't they even thought of to be, it's like the capital improvement committee. We hadn't used them in years. we resurrected them.
Yeah, but
And
that-
they were a little offended, I think, some of them, that they,
Well, the building committee has not existed since I've been on this board. That's 7 years. It hasn't been in existence.
the last bit that they did, I mean, they did the harbor masters, they did the town office, they
Right,
did.
but those-
Right, I'm just saying that.
It was never an official, I hear what
No,
you're
no.
saying, but that
Typically,
was,
and for building projects, an ad hoc building committee is usually convened to
That specific
manage one
project.
project. Now, it may be that the town had a building, but that's before my, so it's been a lot of years.
The last one they did was a public safety building, which was before your time, but
Right.
they had been up until that involved with all
Right,
town.
and we appointed a
buildings.
library building committee for this particular project, and so that's where we are with it at this point, I
So
believe.
do we have agreement and understanding on that point, though? I mean, Doug, you said yes, and so I just want to make sure that, or do we need a motion?
I mean, I think for now, as we navigate these uncharted waters, yes, the select board needs to be front and center. We still do have a library building committee. I think we need to at least involve them as we go forward, and it may be that they attend the meetings while we're here, because at some point, they have unless we're gonna disband that committee, and I would not suggest that.
In fact, I would encourage them to come, but it's select board determinations. It's great if they want to come to any meetings that we're having, which are obviously public meetings.
Right.
But I want us to be involved. I don't want there to be any issues of me not knowing what's going on. I want to know everything that is going on from this point forward until we get these very important issues settled. And I want to be copied on all of the emails, not just what somebody feels like providing to me.
Sorry, what does tomorrow look like?
it's gonna be partly sunny.
No, I don't think it is.
Probably not, but sure, okay.
As far
I like
as-
the optimism.
as
No,
far
I
as
mean, no, sorry, to your point.
Could you come up so the folks at home can hear? Sorry. Are you asking about having a meeting tomorrow?
So we've talked about the parameters of the summer start. We've talked about it's May 1st on Wednesday. Our clock is moving fast. As you think about this, and obviously Charlie and I are gonna be thinking a lot, and we're happy to, how are you thinking about your timetable right now? And to the point of these working sessions so that, we make sure as your owner's rep or discussing how we can get your building moving, how we move that process along. So-
I'm
and- And
thinking-
I'm not being critical, I just.
No, I understand.
I'm just trying to,
I'm
I'm a math
thinking that
dork,
we've
I
got
just
to
need to
get,
process.
we've got to get together sometime this week.
Okay.
And one of the reasons for that is that 3 members of this board are out of town next week on business. So we don't have a quorum in town next week,
Okay.
so nothing can happen next week. We
Okay.
do have kind of a busy schedule this week.
Yeah.
Can we meet
What-
ahead
what-
of the town manager select committee at 5?
We already are.
We already are tomorrow at 5. We're not the next day,
Well,
though.
but that meeting tomorrow was going to be with, was that
If
going
we
to be with?
convert that
was
to
one
this meeting.
One we talked about, but we haven't scheduled that necessarily yet, and some of that has to do with what we discuss right now, but I would not want to rush Charlie and Bettina at all. I would want them to be comfortable.
Well, but they're the ones that are asking us
right,
to
let's-
move
yeah,
ahead. They're
I
not-
I understand
They're
that.
not asking
We gotta-
us to.
We gotta
That's right.
get there first.
That's right.
But what was our prior schedule? The committee was going
May
to.
10th and May
would-
13th.
The 2 dates were the 10th and the 13th, right?
Right.
The 10th, the committee was
10th
gonna bring us the
10th
the
The-
recommendation.
On the 10th, the owner's representative was going to make a recommendation to the library building committee. And the library building committee was going to consider that, and then the schedule was for the library building committee, then with the help of the owner's representative, to make a recommendation to the board on the 13th.
Yep.
All right, so is there any reason why that same timeline can't be maintained?
The only reason is if you want, on the 10th, 3 of us are gone.
Are
on
you
the select
still
board.
gone because your
I'm not
name's
still
been
gone.
taken
My,
off?
my European vacation got canceled.
I'm not, I'm coming back from my business trip on the 10th.
I won't be back until the 11th, so,
Yeah.
So if you want to have a three-person board meet, I don't know that that's wise. Personally, I think we ought to get together sometime this week and
Yeah.
at least have the discussion about how we move forward that we
we've
can't
got-
really have right now.
And the 5 PM meeting, you're right, the 5 PM meeting was available, right? Tomorrow,
Right. And it
For the
can, that
library
can
issue.
convert to this
to
meeting.
this meeting.
Right.
Any days we move earlier aren't hurting us. They're helping us. Any days we push the calendar that way is cutting into the ability to.
So we go
to get-
5 to 6 tomorrow. I guess,
Is that enough, time? Because we have something we have to start at 6. So I don't want to,
Let's start the discussion.
Yeah.
I don't want to,
what is the objective of tomorrow?
Well, we're gonna
I
talk
think
about
to let Phi process what we've done this evening and to give us some advice as our owner's rep, because right now they're still our owner's rep.
Yep.
To give us some advice as to how we can move forward with this project in a timely manner. And if we can do it, if you guys will be ready tomorrow at 5, then I'm fine with that. If it has to be Wednesday at 5, I'm fine with that
Nope.
too.
We'll be ready. And it may be that we have a list of questions to work through priorities and what kind of things that you want to have discussed and considered as we go through the next couple of weeks, so that we can go to work on those things.
And we're meeting at 6 PM the following day on other matters too. For
Right.
the next 2 days, we're meeting at 6.
Now,
And
but I would
so-
point out that, and this is important, because the 6 PM meeting that's tomorrow is a long one.
Yes.
The 6 PM meeting that's on Wednesday is a short one.
You
So
could
we could
start at
we could-
7.
We could actually meet with Phi after that and have a little bit
You
more
You
time.
could do 7 o'clock Wednesday night.
Well, anyway, what I was gonna say is, I'm happy to schedule whatever meetings we need to tomorrow and Thursday and Friday.
And Wednesday.
Thank you. So what I would suggest,
and Wednesday.
and we don't have a plan right now, but
Yeah.
by
Well, let-
5 o'clock tomorrow night, we'd love the opportunity to have some of your time in a working session, and we will have everything on the table with considerations to make sure that we understand your priorities, to make sure a timeline, so that we can, hopefully we can get Steve in here. That would be great, right? I'd like to get Steve. Okay, and we'll go to work.
So
Okay?
let's consider the 5 PM one tomorrow as an initial
Right.
session.
I think that
Yes.
makes sense.
And we could-
Location.
And then the question is, do we want to live stream that one and have it here? That means we got to end by 5:45 because we got to get over to the town office. If that, I asked the board, do you want to have that live streamed?
I'm still trying to figure out what it is we're going to do tomorrow night at 5 o'clock.
We're going to hear their response to what we've done tonight. I think it's an
But
initial.
What did we do? Because we didn't take a motion, we didn't vote on anything.
We voted to reject the bids,
That, we'd reject, that's a fact. We did that.
and they're they're going to respond to that.
All right, that I can handle.
And then I think we could schedule a session on Wednesday at 7 PM, or maybe, depending on how things go, maybe a little later than that. But anyway, we'd have a little bit more time, I think, on Wednesday evening, depending on what we do tomorrow. But I think to let Phi come in as our owner's rep tomorrow at 5 o'clock and just give us their thoughts on a path forward.
All right, as owner's rep,
Right.
I'm good.
Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes, sir.
All right, Rick, I just want to make sure, according to our controls policy, we have the right to reject bids that we choose not to accept,
Right.
correct?
Yes.
That's stated in our purchasing policy. It was stated in the bid documents that the town can reject any and all bids if it's in the best interest of the town to do so.
And town council has reviewed that as well.
All right, so in our policy, remind me, for the items over $25,000 where it says we're required to go out to bid, where is the exception that allows us to not have to rebid? I
Kevin's
just want to make
looking it
sure
up
we
right
get it
now.
captured.
One is because of time constraints, and another one is for other
Yeah,
reasons.
the other one
It
is
is so, it is so wide open, you could run a truck through it.
Time constraints would be,
Time constraints is clearly applicable, but, well, but I don't care, you know, it's, the other is.
I think the other is
there's no
where we
question.
leave it, yeah,
Well,
we have
it's-
the right to do it,
in
and quite
my
honestly,
opinion, it's both,
I
but
think
whatever.
that we did our due diligence, we went out to bid
I understand.
in a, you know,
I just want to make sure the public knows that according to our procurement policy and our controls policy, the select board has the right to refuse bids. The select board has the right to determine whether it's going to rebid or not,
right,
That's right.
okay?
and that decision has
That
not
there
been
are
made
not
yet.
there are not caps on this.
No.
No, and if we do decide not to rebid, then we need to make a statement. I think the town manager has to make a statement as to our reasoning for
Right.
that, which will
Right.
be
All right.
forthcoming.
And further, the state law does not require,
I mentioned that,
Yeah.
doesn't require bidding.
which is new,
I mean,
new news to me, actually.
To Ken's earlier point, we put out a bid package. We presented it to 8,
Seven, I think,
Seven.
seven picked it up, yeah.
right?
3 returned
You know,
it.
I'm just trying, in the world of fairness and transparency,
right.
everybody had an opportunity, if they so choose, to get their hat in the ring here on this. We had 3 reply, we had 1 retract their bid within, what, 24 hours?
No more than that.
6 hours of when it was presented, leaving us with 2, both of them well over the mark. And that's the part we have to just, they weren't even close.
No, not close.
And they knew what our numbers were.
So the action forward, I think, as long as we make sure we are squeaky clean with the procurement policy, our controls policy, and state law, we're good to go.
Can we just discuss location? Because as you say, our other meeting tomorrow at 6 is at the town office, and we either live stream here at 5, and then we have to end at 5:45, or we'll just do it at the town office. Obviously, it's a public meeting. I think that, just to give us the most time, we should probably do that.
Because this group is not actively participating in tomorrow night's session, you pop in at 7 o'clock, you're gonna be fine.
6 o'clock, you mean.
6 o'clock, rather, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
I just tried to get you another hour, but
So-
you turned it down.
So do it at the town office?
No,
No,
do it here.
Here.
Just
Do it
take
here.
5 minutes, you might be 5 minutes late.
You're gonna be okay.
Change it again.
I'm good with that.
Just given the
I think
fact
the live
that
streaming is probably pretty important.
trying to
The
squeeze
interest,
everybody
yes.
into the conference room because they're gonna be setting up in the Richardson room.
Right,
It just
right.
wouldn't really work.
We
uh,
couldn't get
and-
people out
and-
quick enough if there
and
was.
Being able to, Bruce, can you do the live stream here? I'm checking. Yeah, he's checking. Diane is, she's all set with the meeting, getting that scheduled, so,
Okay.
So we pop in a few minutes late, you're saying?
Yeah, and I think-
It's not gonna be a
It's
problem
not gonna be a big deal if you pop in a few minutes late.
if we leave here at 6.
that work for you, Bruce? Yes. Yeah, good.
Okay. Okay, so we'll have a meeting, and I'm gonna call it a workshop tomorrow, because I don't anticipate that we'll take any votes on anything tomorrow. We might, I expect on Wednesday. So for purposes of nomenclature, unless the board disagrees, I'm gonna call this a workshop tomorrow, with our owner's rep.
Right, so by May 13th, had the old schedule held, we would have been approving,
We would have been signing a contract. We would have been accepting a recommendation from
Accepting
the
a
owner's rep.
Accepting a
and then, you know,
recommendation. So
working
if
shortly
we are-
after that to
if-
negotiate a contract.
if we do the same thing by that time, we're back on track.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Just restating the obvious.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, no, good, right.
Any further discussion on this agenda item? Okay, if not, we have some wastewater issues, so take a motion to go into session as wastewater commissioners.
Motion, we go into session as wastewater commissioners.
Second.
Second, all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Okay. Basically, what we have in front of us is in the packet is some information for the sewer bond issue, which we have placed on the ballot and had the public hearing on earlier this evening. And I hope everybody's had a chance to look through it. This is a mailer that is proposed to go out. We mailed one like this the last time we did a
Yep.
sewer issue.
Yeah, it's already been mailed out.
Oh, this has?
Oh, no, not the brochure, I'm
No,
sorry,
yeah,
not the
yeah.
brochure, no,
it's-
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
The letters have already.
letters
gone out,
have
yeah.
already
This is
gone.
just the direct mail.
Right.
Piece for informing the citizens about what the sewer project is, how it's gonna be funded, how it will affect the mill rate, which is that it won't.
Where does it say that in this flyer?
It was a little far down. I
Yeah.
thought maybe we could move that up
Yeah.
on the,
I thought that we were told that where it was is where the council wanted it, or,
Yeah, moving the location, I'll check with
Okay.
Shauna, but moving the
In the third
location.
column, near the second item from the top, what is the impact on my taxes if the sewer does not pass by my profit? Answer, the town's models show that the TIF revenues and sewer user fees will be sufficient to pay the debt service on the bond issue. In other words, we are not anticipating any mill rate adjustments as a result of this project.
Why don't we move that to the first
the-
frequently asked question?
yeah, I agree with that, but I thought, I had the impression that we couldn't, but yeah, if Rick
I
checks
can,
on it.
I can check.
This isn't changing what's
No, I
going on the
know that.
ballot.
I
This is
know.
just
I
an
know.
informational thing.
I know.
I'm fine with rearranging this, however, it's, the board, as long as the information gets out. And I think it did make a difference the last time. The key piece, the background information and more recent years piece in the first column, that stuff is important. Just because people need to know the reason the sewer system came into existence in the first place, which was an environmental concern. And we still have those same environmental concerns. We have failing septic systems in various areas of town. This is also an economic development tool for that section of Route 1. So all the information that's here is important. If we want to
question.
put the tax one up there as number one under frequently asked questions, I don't have an issue with that.
I agree, if it's
I
not
don't think
problem.
it'll be a problem, I'm
Yeah.
just emailing Shauna right now, and so it's in her list to look at in the morning.
Okay.
But I don't, and Megan, she's watching, Megan says she's already checked with her about changing the order, so it must have been brought up previously. And,
Yeah, you did mention it.
and so
last meeting.
she already checked with her, and she's already said it's fine.
Oh,
so.
good, great.
Okay. So I would just leave it to the manager and to the finance director
Yeah.
to get this out in the best way, consistent with
Yep.
council's opinions. And if it can't be moved, it can't be moved. The information is there.
Well, I
Those who
think we
care
already
to
heard
read
that it can be.
Yeah, if you change the wording, that's a different thing,
Yeah,
but,
right.
Yeah.
changing the order
Or
is
if you
not-
bold it,
Yeah, yeah, I suppose.
Okay. Does anybody have any other thoughts on this particular item? If not, we don't have any other wastewater business.
The only thing I want to make clear on the wastewater for you is that as part of this whole process, we will get to the end, and there will likely be some holdouts that we can't get to.
Oh, you're talking about the DI&I stuff.
Right, the I&I. And, yes, I'm sorry, the I&I piece. I'm sorry, I'm a little off. But the I&I piece, there will be some holdouts that we don't get a response from, and there may need to be, at that point, a fine assessed by the commissioners. And-
Okay.
Yeah, so I just want to bring that up, just so that you're not surprised by that if it comes up as we get to that point. I mean, we're hearing from all the people now that are, okay, sure, come in, and I know I'm okay.
They don't have any issues.
They don't have any issues, but it'll be the last 10.
or some of us who hope we don't have any issues, I signed up.
Yeah, yeah, there could be people that don't realize that they have an
Well,
issue.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and the sewer ordinance allows that fine to be assessed. In fact, I don't know whether the commissioners have to do it. I would have to read the sewer ordinance again. I think the code enforcement officer can assess it. But at any rate, the point is that we may have some folks that are gonna be, brought along at the end without, and have a less than comfortable experience. But we have to get it done. Anything else for wastewater commissioners? If not, I'll entertain a motion to go back as select board.
Motion we exit as wastewater commissioners and go back into select board.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Liaison reports, we have a lot of minutes here this time, which is a nice.
Yeah, this, I was curious about this, because usually this doesn't happen. I wonder,
Yeah.
did someone request this?
There was
or-
some initiative taken that I'm glad
Yeah.
for.
Well, whoever did it, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Pass that along, Rick.
Yep. So does anybody want to comment on any liaison reports other than the ones that are here?
Well, I have some that I want to comment on. Not these here, but other ones.
Yeah, that's what I mean, is that.
Yeah, you know, the library committee met on the 25th of this month, and everything's going along there okay, but, you know, there's this funny business about the trust fund that the library has oversight of. And our auditor's still not completely happy with that. The library committee has been talking with our auditor and our attorney, you know, about how to best sort of work this out. But, you know, the select board hasn't really been involved in those discussions, so it's sort of a funny situation. But, you know, at some point, it appears to me we're gonna have to have a group get together, find out what everybody really wants, what the lawyer and the auditors really think, and sort of settle this issue once and for all. I'm not proposing anything right now. I suppose I ought to talk to Rick and, you know, see maybe the best way to handle that. Do you folks have any opinions?
I mean, I think the solution is there. It's just a matter of getting everybody on the same place to talk about it. I think the key pieces, as I understand it from the auditor, is that the auditor wants to make sure, because they are funds that are kept in town accounts, the auditor wants to make sure that the town treasurer is the one who oversees, for lack of a proper, the disbursement of the funds. Maybe that's
Signing
not,
of the
maybe that's not the right word, but the library committee needs to retain control of how those funds are used. And so there's gotta be a way to make that work. And it's just a matter of getting all the right people in the room together and figuring it out.
A question I have with regards to what Doug had said about the committee contacting town legal. Is that something that is, they run by Rick first, or?
Yes, I contacted,
Okay.
I contacted Phil and have been bringing that into the conversation. And we're trying to set up a actual conference call rather than going back and forth by email
Yeah.
to try and solve, to come to a solve that we all can agree to before bringing it to you guys.
Yeah, I'm convinced there's a solution there. It's just a matter of,
So,
you know, we know how valuable the library committee is and the service
Right.
they provide and things like that. It's just a matter of getting the i's dotted and the t's crossed. The other solution that the auditor said was that the library committee could, you know, basically make themselves a 501c3, and then it would be, the money would be kept someplace else. But I think it's probably better to do it the first way, my opinion. So, okay.
Let's see, the foundation, pending the outcome of tonight's discussion about the library and whatnot, they're hoping to set up an actual sort of groundbreaking ceremony on June 9th, or June 7th. So hopefully by then we'll be far enough along that they can proceed with that. And the planning board met the other night. They had 5 items on the agenda, but again, they were all fairly small odds and ends, approving change of uses or modifying, small modifications to various subdivisions. And again, the take-home messages, I think Warren Erickson's doing a great job with that committee, and one less thing we need to worry about right now is the select board, so.
I saw the news story about the escape rooms they're going to make down on Route 1.
Yeah.
the what?
Escape
Escape
rooms.
rooms.
It's some kind of trend, I guess, where they lock you in a room and then you have to figure out how to get out or something, and it's supposed to be fun.
Not my
Sounds
idea of a
great.
good time.
But I guess it's the State of Maine Cheese Building, apparently, somebody's looking at purchasing that and putting in some kind of an entertainment center, which would include that, which I guess is done in other parts of the country and is very popular.
Brunswick has them, or Damascotta, I guess.
Bangor does, or did.
So,
And that's
What, the
it for
jail?
my report.
Oh, sorry.
Same difference.
for me, Legacy Rockport is here, so you can read that one. Ordinance review is finished for the season, cemetery hasn't met. Ambulance review is coming up this week, and the goal there is to have a contract before this board on the 13th of May.
How long is the contract going to be for?
Well, that's one of the things we're gonna have to talk about, because of the various discussions about, looking at a municipal service with Rockland and things like that, and we gotta get some, and Rick has forwarded me some numbers on that, and I haven't had a chance to look at them, let alone forward them to everybody else. As far as the cost of that, because I think the prevailing thought is that if the town's going with a municipal service with Rockland, the cost to the town of Rockport will be substantially higher than what we pay right now. At the last ambulance review meeting, I think I mentioned this, at Northeast offered a 5-year contract with level funding, with some escape clauses along the way. And their big concern is that if we go in a different direction, that they want to have enough notice so that they can rearrange things, and I think that's only fair.
Yeah, but I'm going to be very opposed to signing a 5-year contract with something that I don't see as a great value for the town.
Well, it would have to have escape clauses in it. There would be, you have to, and I think quite honestly, if there's gonna have if this municipal service is gonna get set up in Rockland, it's gonna take some time. It's not gonna happen overnight. They gotta buy ambulances, they gotta hire people, and so it's,
Well, but again, people that you talk to about it feel it can be done,
In a year.
reasonably.
well, that's one of the things that the ambulance review committee will be talking, well, actually, initially, we've gotta get this contract done, so we're gonna talk about that, but, and we also, with the municipal service, not all the towns are, right now, are on board with that.
And I don't have a problem with that,
It doesn't,
you know?
yeah, I mean, it doesn't
everybody
mean
makes their
that-
choice.
Right, it doesn't mean that everybody.
Well, but it
has
does
to
affect
be.
our costs.
Right.
This is gonna be a tough,
Yeah.
I agree with you, but this is going to be a tough I mean, I want to hear, obviously, a lot on this, but I tend to agree with Doug that, I mean, I see this as a year contract, but not a 5-year contract.
I just don't want to be bulldozed into something because
Exactly.
a
No, well,
for-profit
it's-
ambulance company, is worried about their finances.
But I guess what the point I didn't make, which is that this is gonna be a difficult issue for us to discuss on May 13th if there's 3 of us here.
Right.
Again,
I
I'll
mean,
see
you
what I can
won't,
do.
sorry,
about
but
being
you
there.
won't be on the board in the future, and 2 of the people who will be aren't gonna be here, and I just,
Well, we'll have to see. I mean, we could schedule a second meeting in the month of May. We may need one anyway,
Yeah.
but I will endeavor to get out to the board as soon as I can after this meeting on Thursday, what the results of, the contract proposal will be, so that people have it. I can't promise because I'm busy and I gotta get out of town and stuff like that, but I'll do my best to get something to everybody well in advance of that, and Rick will have it as well.
But keep in mind, I mean, what were one option they said was they were willing to do a 5-year contract, but they also are willing to do less than that.
Yeah.
And so there's a bunch of other alternatives. We were looking to extend it for another year. And, that was our goal, getting extended another year. It was supposed to be a year-to-year contract,
Well, in the
It's a
past, we've had
3-year contract,
we had a 3-year
extendable every
contract with them. I think one of the things that we have to think about, and to be fair to them, is that they need some notice. If the contract is not gonna be continued at some point, they need to have some notice for that. And I think that's only fair. And it's just a question of how much notice that is.
highlights of the couple other committees, if I could.
Yep.
Harbor Committee, one of the, beside the warrants that were just presented, one of the conversations is around the park rental and where that revenue lands in the town budget. Because it certainly impacts the Harbor Committee, that park, and the thought being that the revenue stream ought to land in the harbor budget and not somewhere else.
Where does it land now? Just in the general?
I don't know where it
yeah.
lands.
The black hole.
It apparently doesn't land in
It
Abby's
doesn't
budget.
land
It's
in the-
revenue stream,
It doesn't land in the harbor budget, I know that.
all right, because the,
Well, that's been an age-old issue there, is the Parks Committee and the Harbor Committee, you know, have some jurisdictional issues down there. And that's probably
that's-
part and parcel of
it-
that needs to be
it's
figured
part,
out.
I guess, the concept of, if you lump it all together, the harbor breaks even, plus or minus. I mean, that's the part that we gotta remember, is it breaks even. Ish.
Megan is saying that it already goes to the harbor. When people are watching, the revenue it already goes to offset their expenses.
Okay, well,
Right, because I thought that was a change, because at
Yeah.
one point in time, it landed somewhere else.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. I
Yeah.
stand corrected.
anything else under liaison reports?
Pathways, I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, there's really nothing to report on Midcoast Solid Waste, other than, we're searching for a new facility manager, and the timing on that is what, Rick? They were having their last interview by a committee last Friday, and I think we're supposed to be having a meeting soon, but it hasn't been set.
No, there was no set date, as I remember.
For the board to, as a whole, interview a few finalists.
Sorry, back to Harbor, you're gonna see the revised fees and some other language changes to some of the Harbor Committee's paperwork. On the pedestrian, the Pathways Committee, conversations around the exact location of some crosswalks on Route 90 around Forest Glen versus other options. And on the rec committee, a lot of work regarding getting the fields up and functional at the start of the year here with Public Works.
I forgot a quick report on the Keep Rockport Beautiful business. Keep Rockport Beautiful got a little mini landscaping plan for the RES corner of Route 1 and 90 across from Market Basket there, to try to make that a little bit more attractive. We have in the budget, I think, $1,500. The estimated cost of the landscaping was around $11,000. And so the committee asked if we could approach Legacy Rockport to act as a pass-through again for a GoFundMe, campaign, so community people can donate to that.
I may miss the next Legacy Rockport meeting, but I'll pass it along to, or if you want to, you can, to Dave Jackson. He's the co-chair. Dave or Charlton are the co-chairs.
Okay.
In fact, that's probably better if you can tell them you
Just
talk to
talk
me,
to-
just talk to them and ask them to
Alright.
put it on the agenda, because I may miss the next meeting. So I think it's next week.
We'd like to make the planting season.
Yeah, that's why I say it's probably. Okay, any further liaison reports? If not, we do have an executive session this evening, so need a motion to go into that.
We motion to adjourn this?
Actually, we will adjourn after the executive session, 'cause we're
I'll move to go into executive session to discuss a personnel matter pursuant to 1 MRSA, Section 4056A.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. We'll be in executive session, and you guys are, Bruce, you're done for the night, so.